The Galactic Empire believed humanity to be weak. They assumed Earth was just another primitive world in the vast stretch of their dominion, a species too new to the stars, too inexperienced in war to pose a threat. So, when an Imperial raiding fleet descended upon Eden's Reach, a human colony on the fringes of space, they did so with arrogance. Their warships cracked the planet's defenses in hours, their soldiers storming the settlements unchallenged. They took what they wanted: resources, information, and most importantly, children. For centuries, the Empire had abducted younglings from subjugated worlds, raising them in their military academies, stripping them of identity, turning them into Imperial assets. It was a process refined over generations, effective, unquestioned. What the Empire didn't realize was that, in taking those children, they had just made the worst mistake in their history. Because among those taken was Elias Cade, the son of a woman the galaxy had long tried to forget. And there were 3 universal rules about Serena Cade. You never see her coming. You don't get a second chance. You do not, under any circumstances, take what belongs to her. The Empire's arrogance was so absolute that, when Earth's representatives contacted them, demanding the return of their citizens, the High Command found it amusing. The Imperial Governor of Sector Theta 9, a bloated bureaucrat with no grasp of military reality, laughed openly. "We do not negotiate with lesser species," he had declared in a transmission to the United Nations Stellar Authority. "Your colony belongs to us now. So, do your children. If you challenge us, you will be exterminated." Earth did not respond with threats. They didn't mobilize their fleets. They didn't issue an ultimatum. Instead, Serena Cade vanished. And 3 days later, the Empire started dying. The first report was dismissed as a malfunction. A security outpost along the prison transport's route had gone dark. No distress call, no emergency transmission, just silence. A routine check-in from an Imperial patrol found the station abandoned. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Just blood. Too much of it. Then, another outpost fell. This time, they had footage. It wasn't much, just a shadow slipping through the perimeter, a brief flicker of movement before the security feed cut out. But in those few frames, the Imperial analysts saw something they refused to believe. One person, alone. And yet, within minutes, 50 armed soldiers were dead. The prison transport's captain, an experienced officer named Krail Voxis, was finally beginning to understand. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't sabotage. This was a hunt. And the hunter was getting closer. On board the Imperial Prison Transport Vanguard's Mercy, the children were kept in a fortified cell block, heavily guarded and monitored at all times. They had been taught not to resist. Elias Cade, however, did not look afraid. As the ship's guards paced the corridors, muttering about the Phantom killing their people, Elias sat in the dim light of the detention block, watching, listening. He had grown up hearing stories of the woman the Empire now feared. "Don't worry," he whispered to the others, his voice calm, steady. "She's coming." A distant explosion rocked the ship. The alarms screamed to life. And on the bridge, as Captain Voxis stared at his failing security feeds, he heard a sound that chilled his blood. A single transmission, overriding their encrypted channels. A woman's voice, low and calm. "I have your scent. Run." Captain Krail Voxis had never been afraid of a single enemy before. He had commanded Imperial warships in planetary sieges, led troops against insurgents, and executed countless rebels without hesitation. He understood warfare. But this was different. The enemy aboard his ship wasn't an army, a fleet, or a battalion of trained saboteurs. It was just one person, and she was winning. The Vanguard's Mercy was a heavily armed Imperial prison transport, designed to withstand raids, mutinies, and planetary assaults. It carried over 300 armed guards, each one handpicked from the best security forces in the sector. Yet, in less than an hour, over a dozen were already dead. Voxis clenched his fists as he watched the latest security feed. The footage was brief, captured just before the camera feed was cut. A lone figure moving like a wraith through the corridors, her body shifting in and out of sight between flashing emergency lights. No wasted movement. No hesitation. One shot, one kill. Serena Cade. The name alone sent a cold dread through his chest. The stories about her weren't myths. They weren't exaggerated rebel propaganda. She was exactly as they had feared. And now she was inside his ship. The hunt begins. Seal all blast doors, Voxus barked. No one moves alone. We push her toward the lower decks, force her into a choke point. His officers nodded, scrambling to execute his orders. It wouldn't matter. By the time his men locked down the corridors, she was already inside their defensive perimeter. The first sign of her next attack was a power fluctuation. Then the lights flickered and dimmed, throwing the ship into deep red emergency lighting. Then the whispers started. A garbled transmission echoed through their comm channels. Her voice, speaking in Imperial encryption. I'm inside. You're already dead. A squad of 10 guards advanced through the lower corridors, weapons at the ready, their nerves stretched thin. They had been trained to fight squads of rebels, not a ghost. Something moved in the shadows. A single shot rang out. One of the guards dropped. Headshot. Panic. Shouting. Wild gunfire filled the air as the squad sprayed their weapons in every direction, hitting nothing. And then the real killing began. Serena didn't fight like a soldier. She fought like a predator. She struck fast and mercilessly, emerging from the darkness, knives flashing, breaking necks, silencing screams. By the time the last guard hit the floor, the corridor was filled with bodies. She whispered into the comms again, her voice steady. You should have given them back. Nowhere left to run. Voxus stood frozen on the bridge. The feed from his men had gone dark. His elite guards slaughtered. His defenses shattered. His authority irrelevant. For the first time in his career, he understood what true terror felt like. Sir, an officer stammered. She's moving toward the detention block. The children. That was her target all along. Voxus had one final order left. He turned to his lieutenant, his voice shaking. Kill them. The officer hesitated. Sir, if she wants them back, she'll have to take them as corpses. But the lieutenant's hands trembled as he reached for the control panel. And then the blast doors behind them hissed open. The room fell into silence. Serena Cade stood there, her weapon raised. Voxus barely had time to scream. The bridge of the Vanguard's Mercy smelled of blood. Captain Krail Voxus was dead, his body crumpled against the console where he had tried, and failed, to issue the order to kill the children. His officers had fared no better. Some lay motionless, throats cut in precise, silent kills. Others slumped in their seats, bullet holes clean through their skulls. Serena Cade stood in the center of the carnage, unbothered, unhurried. The ship belonged to her now. But the fight wasn't over. She turned to the nearest working terminal, fingers moving fast over the controls. She had shut down external communications before storming the bridge, but it wouldn't last. The Empire would respond. They always did. And that was fine. She wanted them to come. The Talons mobilize. Beyond the cold void of space, the Empire was already in motion. Word had spread faster than fire. A single human operative had seized control of an Imperial prison transport, killing its captain and elite security forces without assistance. Worse, she was still alive. This wasn't just a failure. This was an embarrassment. The Empire's solution? The Imperial Talons. They were the finest killers in the Empire, covert specialists, assassins, and counterinsurgency operatives. Unlike standard soldiers, the Talons had been trained in asymmetrical warfare. They would not panic. They would not hesitate. They would not fall like the others. A warship carrying an elite Talon strike team altered course, burning toward the Vanguard's Mercy at full speed. Their mission was simple. Eliminate Serena Cade. The hunt becomes a war. Serena watched the incoming Imperial warship on the scanner. She had 30 minutes before the Talons arrived. That was enough. She moved quickly, her mind already calculating the next steps. Step 1. Lock down the detention block. The children had to be protected. She disabled security overrides, reinforced access points, and sealed them in. Step 2. Set the battlefield. She knew exactly how the Talons would come. Fast, precise, overconfident. She would break that confidence. Explosives were placed at key junctions. Oxygen vents rerouted to specific hallways. The power grid set to fail on her command. Step 3. Make them fear the dark. When the Talons boarded, they would enter a ship that felt wrong. Lights flickering. Systems unreliable. Shadows moving where there should be none. Serena Cade would turn this vessel into a graveyard. Contact. The Imperial warship dropped out of hyperspace. Serena watched the Talons deploy. 12 of them. Heavily armored, moving in tight formation. Their leader, a veteran named Commander Orisvale, was already issuing orders through encrypted channels. Serena intercepted their comms effortlessly. Stay together. She wants us isolated. Smart. But it wouldn't help. She watched them enter the ship, weapons raised, helmets scanning the shadows. They had no idea how fast they were going to die. Serena Cade smiled and killed the lights. The moment the lights died, the Talons knew they had made a mistake. Commander Oris Vale stood at the front of his squad, visor glowing faintly in the darkness. His men held formation, their weapons scanning the corridor ahead. 12 elite operatives, the best the Empire had. And yet, as the emergency lights flickered weakly, casting erratic shadows against the walls, something primal twisted in his gut. They weren't hunting Serena Cade. She was hunting them. The first kill. The team advanced in a tight formation, their movements precise, disciplined. Oris flicked his comms. Thermals on. The moment their helmet visors adjusted to infrared, something moved at the edge of their vision. A flicker. A ghost. Before anyone could react, the rear soldier let out a choke gurgle. A knife, impossibly fast, slid clean across his throat. Silence. No gunfire. No scream. Just a body hitting the floor. Vale whipped around, but there was nothing there. Just blood. He clenched his jaw. Keep moving. His men obeyed, stepping over the corpse, nerves stretched to breaking. The Predator's game. Serena moved through the air, vents like a phantom, watching them. They thought numbers made them strong. They were wrong. They had already lost the moment they stepped aboard. She had rerouted their HUD displays, feeding them false thermal signatures. They would see movement where there was none. They would hear whispers in their comms, her voice in their own encryption. You're already dead. One of the Talons panicked. He fired wildly into the dark, the bolts slamming into nothing. The others cursed, shifting position. And that was when she struck again. A gunshot, silenced, straight through another Talon's visor. His head snapped back, body crumbling. Vale swore. Switched to manual targeting. She's scrambling our systems. The squad adjusted, but it didn't matter. Serena had them. The breaking point. The Talons pushed forward, desperate now, their formation crumbling. Serena led them into a bottleneck. A tight corridor with one path forward. They rushed in. Too fast. The moment they passed the threshold, the explosives detonated. A shockwave tore through the corridor. 2 Talons were instantly vaporized, their armor useless against the concussive force. The others were flung back, their bodies slamming into walls. Vale's ears rang as he struggled to his feet. His HUD flickered. Half his team was gone. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. He turned, expecting to see an enemy he could fight. Instead, she was already there. A single bullet punched through his second-in-command skull. A knife embedded into another's throat. Vale raised his rifle, but Serena vanished into the shadows before he could fire. The survivors panicked. They ran, and Serena chased them down. The last stand. Vale and the last 2 Talons barricaded themselves in an access chamber, breathing hard, shaking. She's not human, one of them whispered. Shut up, Vale snapped. Silence. Then, a soft noise from the vents above. Vale's heart stopped. They aimed their rifles up, but the moment they did, the vent panel crashed open. Serena dropped from above. Gunfire erupted, too slow. She was inside their guard before they could react, knives flashing. The first Talon went down instantly, his armor splitting open as a blade punched through his ribs. The second managed to scream before a gunshot silenced him. Now only Vale remained, bleeding, defeated. Serena stepped closer, weapon raised. He looked up at her and saw no mercy. She pulled the trigger. A single shot, and then silence. Nowhere left to hide. Serena reloaded as she stepped over the bodies. The Empire's best had fallen like all the others. The warship still loomed outside, waiting. She turned toward the detention block. The children were next. It was time to bring them home. The Empire refused to accept defeat. They had lost contact with the Vanguard's mercy. Their elite Talon strike team had gone silent. Every attempt to reach Captain Voxus ended in static. The truth was clear. One human had annihilated them all. And so, in the cold void above the prison transport, an Imperial warship made its final decision. Destroy the ship. Kill everyone aboard. It was the only way to erase the humiliation. A race against fire. Serena Cade was already moving. She reached the detention block, overriding the last security protocols. The children inside flinched as the doors hissed open, but when they saw who stood there, fear turned to something else. Hope. Elias Cade, standing among them, met his mother's eyes. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Serena raised a hand. Follow me. No hesitation. They obeyed. But time was running out. The Imperial warship above had locked its weapons onto the Vanguard's mercy. Their cannons hummed, power levels rising. One strike, one hit. Everything would be erased. Serena pushed forward, guiding the children through the corridors, her mind calculating the fastest way off the doomed ship. Then the alarms changed. Not a security breach. Not an automated lockdown. Something else. A new warship had arrived. And this time, it wasn't Imperial. The Skyburns. The Imperial captain on the attacking warship barely had time to process the new threat before his sensor officer paled. Sir, new contact. It's not one of ours. On the view screen, a human warship emerged from hyperspace. Silent, sleek, and fast. No warnings. No transmissions. Just an immediate weapons lock. Earth had sent its answer. The first shots came without mercy. The Imperial warship's shields flared under the impact of railgun rounds moving faster than anything they had defenses for. Missile barrages followed, tearing through armor like paper. Inside the Vanguard's mercy, Serena felt the vibrations of impact shake the ship. But she didn't slow down. The docking bay was close, and she had a ride waiting. Extraction. The children reached the airlock as a sleek, black dropship settled into the hangar. Thrusters glowing. Human special forces were already moving, securing the perimeter, taking no chances. A soldier stepped forward, visor reflecting the emergency lights. Cade. Serena gave him a nod. We're leaving. Behind her, Elias helped the younger kids onto the transport. His hands were steady, his voice calm. He had his mother's focus. The war above still raged, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Empire had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't live to make the mistake again. A final message. As the dropship rocketed away, the Imperial warship shuddered under one last, devastating strike. The battle was over. Serena Cade watched from the viewport as the Vanguard's mercy, now empty, was consumed in a fireball, erasing all traces of the Empire's crimes. She tapped into an open frequency. Her voice carried across the system. You took what was ours. This is what happens when you do. And then she was gone. The Empire was silent. For the first time in centuries, they didn't know how to respond. A single human had annihilated an elite Imperial security force. Their best covert operatives, the feared Talons, had been erased. A prison transport had been seized, its captain executed, its mission obliterated. And worst of all, Earth had made no official statement. No grand declarations. No threats. No ultimatums. They had simply taken back what was theirs and left nothing behind. But the Empire wasn't just wounded. They were afraid. Aftermath of the hunt. In the cold corridors of the Imperial High Command, a meeting took place behind sealed doors. Hushed voices. Grim faces. Grand Moff Daraxus, one of the highest-ranking officials in the Empire, paced in controlled fury. His hands curled into fists, but there was no easy solution. This woman slaughtered an entire ship's complement. She crippled our forces and left without a trace. We cannot allow this to stand. A general spoke, his voice uncertain. The humans sent one operative. Just one. He swallowed. Sir, imagine if they sent an army. Silence. It was a terrifying thought. The Empire had always considered itself unrivaled in power. But this event had shattered that illusion. It wasn't Earth's fleets that terrified them. It was the realization that humanity didn't fight like anyone else. They didn't invade. They didn't negotiate. They hunted. And Serena Cade had left them with a very clear message. The Empire would never admit it publicly. But privately, they knew. They could never afford to provoke Earth again. A different kind of war. Some in the high command still wanted retribution, to strike at humanity before they became an even greater threat. But how? Even with all their resources, they couldn't find her. Serena Cade had disappeared like a ghost, fading into the void. And Earth? They simply refused to engage. No diplomatic protests. No retaliation. Nothing. It was as if the entire event had never happened. That terrified the Empire more than any open conflict ever could. Because it meant humanity was watching, waiting. And the next time the Empire crossed them, they wouldn't see it coming. A hunter's return. Far from Imperial space, aboard a quiet human vessel, Serena Cade sat across from her son, Elias. He was young, but his eyes were sharp, focused. He had spent weeks in enemy captivity and had come out unbroken. Just like his mother. Serena sipped her drink, studying him. You held them together. Elias nodded. He didn't need to explain. She had seen it in the way the other children looked at him, how they followed his lead. They were scared, he admitted. But I knew you'd come. Serena's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. They took the wrong child, she said simply. Elias glanced out the viewport, watching the stars streak past. They'll come for us again. Serena leaned back, voice calm. Let them. The Empire had made its choice. Now, it would live in fear of hers.